You know, my dear nerds, growing up, I had an uncle. Let's call him Uncle Vasile. And this Uncle Vasile, well, he was quite a character to say the least. I think you, nice nerds, will appreciate this story. You see, Uncle Vasile was a short, kind of stocky man, but with a heart of gold. He had so much character that it was overwhelming. And my uncle had so many freaking theories by which he lived. Some of them were controversial, some of them made perfect sense, some of them made him look like a freaking nut job. But all of them kind of were funny in a way or another, and he would always tell me, and bear in mind I was a child when this happened, imagine an 80-year-old Vlad, but he would always tell me, Vlad, always do the job, even if you do it badly. It's better to do a poopy job than to not do it at all. Granted, now that I grew up, I kind of realized that's not the best advice, but in hindsight, he was also kind of right. In the absence of certain features, we are pre-programmed to accept half-baked features or half-baked possibilities rather than to not engage or not have access to certain things at all. And this exact energy is what reminds me of the RG Cube from Anbernic. Because this is a pleasant handheld. This is a handheld that stirred up sympathy in me. I used to trash talk this handheld a lot before I got it in my hands. I will eat my words a bit and I will say that this somewhat beautiful Anbernic device, actually, why am I gonna lie to you, this actually looks freaking beautiful. This is a great handheld with two possible drawbacks that might be deal breakers to people. But before I go on, my dear nerds, I just want to quickly say that this RG Cube was generously provided to me by the nice folks at Mech DIY. Mech DIY is actually an awesome store. They sent this to me and they were so freaking patient with this video because I actually had the RG Cube next to a month and a half by this point. They have good prices and they love this whole niche just as much as we do. So make sure to check them out. I'm gonna leave a link to their website and to their product page for the RG Cube in the video description. Seriously though, they are an awesome store and I would love it if we could show them some love. Anyway, going back to our birds and bees over here, let's talk about this bad boy. Before I continue though, my dear nerds, I just want to low-key brag with this top-down setup that I made, even though I still have a lot of improvements to do with it. I've always wanted a top-down setup and now I actually feel like a freaking YouTuber. Ever since starting this channel, I used a tiny table right outside of this closet. And there it is. That's where I filmed all the B-roll. And now we have this. So I'm gonna spoil you nerds with a quick unboxing, which I pre-boxed for you fine nerds, because it was impossible for me not to play with this. But yeah, look at this box sliding. You fine people love this. Oh yeah, heck yeah. In the box, we're really not receiving much. We're getting the handheld itself, this nice foam thing that we receive with every Anbernic handheld. Let's put this aside for a second. Wet wipes, a screen protector, which is awesome. The classical mini Anbernic pamphlet manual, which nobody cares about. I'm pretty sure there's a cable here. I actually didn't open this. And the cable isn't anything special. Jesus Christ, I made a mess here. Let me do that quick transition thing. Snap. And bam! It's all clean by freaking magic. And that magic is actually me because I paused this to clean it. But let's inspect the cube for a second. I'm just gonna leapfrog over this because I'm convinced you watched a million other reviews until I received this one. But yeah, the RG Cube is actually immensely ergonomic in the hand. And I was shocked by this, because these handles aren't really thick, they aren't big per se, but they are just enough of a curve on the back that makes you have something to grip on. Actually, even though I hate this 1x1 screen, I'll get back to it because this is actually one of the two almost game-breaking things about this handheld that I feel UFI nerds should know about, but this aspect ratio actually comes with a good thing, meaning that this is perhaps, and not actually perhaps, this is really one of the most portable, actually I'll rephrase, the most portable mother flipping handheld that can also play PS2. But yeah, look at this freaking thing. Everything that isn't a screen will be covered by the hand. And I personally like this. I will recommend the second you get this thing to delete all emulators and to not look back, to manually install everything. This handheld comes with a ton, and I mean a ton, of pirated emulators and apps, which I personally condone. I do not like that. I think there's a difference between piracy and emulation, but I'll come back to this in the second part of the video. So, going back to this, what I actually did, I'm not gonna show you how it came by default because I think that you're a very smart nerd and you're gonna customize the poop out of this. I'm not gonna insult your intelligence by baby stepping you through all the process. But what I actually did is I followed Joey's, from Joey's Retro Handhelds, guide on how to reprogram the Anbernic button in the bottom left here, and I actually programmed it to launch two different front ends. So if I just tap on it, it will take me to Emulation Station, which I bought specifically for this video. And oh my god, look, as a coincidence, we already have Legacy of Kain here as the first game that I show off on this. Emulation Station is Emulation Station. I don't need to show you the birds and bees here. So I assume you know how Emulation Station looks like. I'm not gonna dive too deep into this. I still have to scrape a ton of artwork, but that's a problem for future Vlad. I don't really care that much about that guy, so let's move on. But this is not the end of it, my dear nerds, because Emulation Station, and this will be a very controversial opinion, is actually not my favorite front end. What I actually like is Beacon Launcher, and I can get into it. Oh my god, Legacy of Kain again. What are the odds, my dear nerds? No, it's almost like I'm actively encouraging you to play the Legacy of Kain franchise, and please, play the freaking franchise. It's the best series of games that you can play. But going back to this, if I double tap, I now automatically open the Beacon Launcher, and if I single tap, I go back into Emulation Station. And if I long press on the home button, I go back into main Android. You can do a setup like this. I would want to say fairly easy, but it's actually quite a bit of tinkering. It will take an afternoon for you to, wait for it, to do something like this. Now, is it worth it? Well, it depends. What's worth it in this day and age, my dear nerds? Seriously, what's worth it? If this gives you dopamine, then freaking go for it. I sure as heck did. Performance-wise, I was actually quite surprised by this. It handles a lot more things than I initially expected. When I trash talked the RG Cube in my previous videos, I was actually expecting it to behave way worse than it actually did. I want to specify this. Don't get the impression that this is a freaking powerhouse, because it isn't. This will barely, in most cases, run PS2 if you're lucky at 2x, but even at 2x you will experience slowdowns and you will want to lower that to 1x or 1.5x. I am at the age where I am too tired to tinker, but to be fair and to not scold the RG Cube on the performance side, you don't have to do a lot of tinkering. You have to do a bit of tinkering if you're a perfectionist. If you're not a perfectionist, and if you don't want to milk every drop of performance out of this thing, you will survive just fine. Legacy of Kain, which we see stretched here because, again, freaking aspect ratio, is kind of behaving in an okay way. I mean, I could see myself enjoying this game, maybe not to its full extent, but it's still pretty dang playable, I would say, if only I wouldn't suck at it right now. And all lower consoles from the PS2 downwards, like PSP, they all work like a charm. In fact, I'm not even gonna test them because I'm pretty sure you saw this a million times. But yeah, the RG Cube does everything beautifully up to PS2 and everything lower than that. I wouldn't even try Nintendo Switch on this. Some Switch games might actually work. I'm thinking Broforce and maybe if you're lucky, Inside, but that's about it. I wouldn't do Portal or Half-Life 2 or anything more hardcore like that. What I'm actually surprised by is that quite a few Android games try to scale to the full 1:1 aspect ratio, but sometimes they fail. For example, in Dead Cells, I think this game is called, you can't even tell the text anymore because it's all jargled. The definitive version of GTA Vice City scales way better though. And yeah, this is normal GTA Vice City, but in my opinion, if you were to ask me, it's sort of an inferior version because a lot of awesome songs from Vice City Radio was taken out due to copyright licensing issues, I think, but you still have that GTA Vice City overall vibe to it, plus updated graphics, so, you know, it's really a preference thing by this point. Personally, I found myself playing with the definitive versions. This is my first contact. I got myself Netflix, and apparently Netflix also offers games now, so why the heck not? But anyway, I'm tired of this table, let's go back to our normal kind of vibe, my dear nerds. Now, the period of sunshine and roses comes to an end, because now we have to talk about the things that I didn't really like about this handheld, and granted, I have to specify this before I start, these are highly subjective things. So what might be an almost deal breaker for me, I'll leave it up to you to think whether or not it's a deal breaker for you. The first thing that I wasn't crazy about, and I knew this from the get-go, is the 1:1, come on, don't close on me every 10 seconds, wait a second, is the 1:1 aspect ratio screen. I never understood why we have this on Android. In my humble Vlad-like opinion, the only reason to have 1:1 is to play Pico 8, but there's no Pico 8 support officially on Android, so this made me wonder, why is the RG Cube with the aspect ratio that it has? I never actually quite understood this. The only thing that comes to my mind is that eventually we'll have a 4:3 incarnation of what the RG Cube is, and Anbernic wanted to do stepping stones of different handhelds, so, well, they are a company after all, so they maximize sales. But surprisingly enough, the 1:1 aspect ratio screen actually played very well with me, because I'm one of those monsters, my dear nerds. I am a freaking monster that doesn't mind stretching to fit any possible game out there. I will stretch to fit PSP on this thing, which is 16:9. I don't care. I will enjoy and love playing the stretched out version of GTA Vice City Stories on this thing, and I won't care. I actually enjoyed playing PS2 all stretched out from 4:3 to 1:1 on this, and I also didn't care. But you see, we live in a niche where people are very, very particular when it comes to proper scaling. In an ideal scenario, they would want integer scaling. They would want things to be as pixel perfect as possible. Me, my eyesight is horrible, I don't care about that. Maybe you care. You need to figure out for yourself if you can put this 1:1 screen to use or not. Personally, I kind of low-key like that the 1:1 screen makes it less wide, which makes it more pocketable. But this is again with an asterisk, because being more ergonomic, it has these bumps, the horns, how the heck should I call them? These things, which are not really as pocket friendly as a flat handheld like the RGB 30 from Powkiddy. And there's also the sticks, which I would call them fairly recessed, but not enough for them to possibly not snag in the pocket. At the same time though, this is way more pocketable than many other handhelds that I own, and considering the raw power in this thing, considering that most, if not all, of your childhood PS2 games can actually run on this. Yeah, they will not run at 4x or 3x, but they will run. And this is the most pocketable PS2 machine that I can think of right now. Maybe Retroid with the Retroid 5 Mini will dethrone this title fairly quickly, but as of making this video, this is the most portable way in which you can play PS2. But the other negative point that I have with the RG Cube doesn't have a kind of compromise in my head. It isn't acceptable in any way, and that is the software that the RG Cube comes bundled with. You have all the emulators under the sun on this handheld out of the box, and most of them are paid versions of the emulator, and I have a big problem with this. My dear nerds, I will repeat this until I freaking am unable to make videos anymore. Piracy is not the same as emulation. All people who find commonalities between these two, they hurt this community. We worked pretty darn hard to make emulation sort of, kind of, in the gray zone of legality, and it's right on the cusp of legal to the point where companies ain't suing the pants off emulator creators, which is good. But if we start convoluting piracy and emulation, none of us are gonna win. We are trading long-term stability for short-term shortcuts, and I didn't like that. The RG Cube not only came with all the emulators under the sun, literally, think of an emulator, this thing probably had it bundled, but it also came rooted. And I have a big problem with pre-rooted devices. If I root my own devices, that's different, because then I know what it actually contains. But I would never, ever, 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 ever under the sun put my own important accounts, like my personal account, or God forbid, my VladNerd account, into a pre-rooted device. For this device in particular, I had to create a separate Google account, which is now my main Google account for gaming, which I don't care if it ever gets lost. But this device, this specific device, made me create a separate account. No other handheld made me do this, and I had to spend like half an hour cleaning this device, effectively cleaning it of all bloatware possible. This means emulators, this means their own custom launcher for games, which, quite frankly, I want to use my own. That's why Android attracts me on such handhelds, because I can tune it and make it my own. After I cleaned everything, I calmed down a bit. I felt like I had more or less stock Android on this. Almost everything on this handheld you can get rid of, which is very, very good, because again, it's rooted, you can basically delete everything. Joey from Joey's Retro Handhelds, or Russ from Retro Game Corps, I can't remember which one of them, actually has a fairly comprehensive guide on how to do exactly this. So if you want to clean your handheld like I did, I highly advise you to Google and find that guide. Just search for debloat RG Cube /RG556 and I'm sure you'll find it. So when it comes to the RG Cube, I plead with you, my dear nerd, delete all the emulators on this. You don't know what they contain. This was a pre-rooted device. Never trust pre-bundled pirated APKs. This is the last thing you should trust. On top of the food chain of trust, there should be me. You should trust me. And at the very bottom, there should be Kate from Lost and pirated APKs. By the way, I mentioned Kate from Lost because I'm rewatching the Lost series. It's on my mind, living rent-free. So if you want to get one, I wholeheartedly advise you to get one from Mac DIY. Again, links in the description. If you don't want to get one, then thanks for watching, I guess. And either way, make sure to subscribe. I would really appreciate it. I want VladNerd to grow, and I want us to grow it together. Even though VladNerd has Vlad in it, I don't consider VladNerd as a me channel. I consider this channel as a sort of mirroring voice of the people that actually follow this channel. So make your voice heard, leave comments, subscribe, press the like button, Show me that hypothetical online love that all YouTubers yammer on about. I would love you forever for that. And if you want to support me more directly so I can push out way more videos and have way more handhelds for you fine people to review, then you can become either a channel member or a Patreon, and you would have your rightful place on my wall of fame along with all these awesome people like TechDweeb, Raz, and Joey from Joey's Retro Handhelds. But either way, if you watched up until this point, I love you regardless. In a perfect world, we would hang out and we would rant about all of these freaking handhelds until our voices disappear or until we get tired and eat something and then talk about Lost. In case you haven't seen Lost, you should really see Lost. It's one heck of a good series. But anyway, my dear nerds, I've been recording for 40 freaking minutes. I have to dilute this to 10 or 20. I'm dreading how much editing I have before me right now. Here's hoping I get to release this one soon. But in the meantime, remember that I love you very much. I always will. Bye.